I officially got diagnosed when I was aged 11, as I was having epileptic seizures, which were at the time they were more of an absence, so what people kind of refer to as like daydreaming. I wouldn't always notice I was having them, but some key instances happened where I was having them, such as I was opening some presents on the step for my birthday, and apparently I just went blank all of a sudden, and my auntie saw me across the room and was like, "That's not right, you need to go and see a doctor."
Did that come on when you were 11, or was it just noticed when you were 11?
I suppose it was probably more noticed when I was 11. When I had a chat with my parents, they said they'd seen them probably likely since I was about 3.
Right,
but
okay.
Because it's such short spurts and random, they never used to be, I'm guessing, very often.
Yeah.
You could just pass it as someone's not listening, someone's having a daydream, I'm not chatting, or something like that. But from chatting to a few people, apparently along with puberty, it was one of the things that was more increased so the symptoms were increasing a bit more. For many things.
Yeah. So that was when you were 11.
Yeah.
And how did things progress from then? So your auntie noticed.
Yeah.
And your parents presumably took you to a doctor.
Yeah. So originally my parents just took me to the doctor, and then they straight away referred me to the MSG, where they were like, yes, she's got epilepsy.
Yeah.
I think my parents weren't really sure how to kind of take it in, really, as it was kind of I'm guessing not what you're expected. You go into a meeting and come out with this massive title of a condition that can have so many different things.
And it's quite a scary word, epilepsy.
It is, yeah. I suppose typically when people think about it, they think of people dropping to the floor, having a seizure, but it's not always that. For example, the seizures we were talking about before. And I know I had some typical seizures, but I also most often would have like a few different types of them. So the seizures would continue, and I went through a process of trying different medications, and this was quite a long process. And then I got to the stage where I was missing quite a lot of school. As soon as they said I lost my independence, I was unable to do things like swimming and cycling. I couldn't really do too many activities, and I had to be with someone at all times because they weren't sure if I was going to have one or not. So it impacted me quite a bit. I didn't feel like a teenager. I felt like someone that was always being watched. But the one thing I did continue was my music.
Right, okay.
And it was my little getaway to music.
Yeah.
I did it with the help of my teaching assistant and my mum and my friends and family. They enabled me to carry it on. That was kind of where it was going. And it was funny because when we kind of talked about that, when I was playing, I would never have a seizure. I'd always, if I was playing, I'd stop, have the seizure, and then carry on. But the music, I said it would have been fascinating to have a scan now and see what it would have been like and how it was affected by that. But obviously that's in the past.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did that then build up to the surgery? Because that was then, there's a few years between, or 3 years between your initial diagnosis and when you had your surgery.
So I originally had an EEG, which they didn't notice anything major. And then they kind of just tried to carry on with prescribing me different medications, trying to find something that would help. But it got to the stage where I would almost be having seizures full time. There wasn't a moment where I wasn't having them, although they might not have always been noticeable. That's kind of the worst of where it got to. But I was referred to the hospital for about 3 weeks in the run up to my surgery. I think it was the year before, and that was hard because I couldn't do anything. I was constantly having seizures. I tried to look at TVs and things like that, but that was horrible, and it just wouldn't. I couldn't look at screens or anything.
Were you aware that you were having the seizures as you had them?
So I got what they call an aura in my hands. So I'd have that funny. I can't explain the feeling. It's a funny feeling that I'd usually get, and if I felt that, usually I'd know I'd have a seizure, but I could feel it anything from 5 minutes beforehand to 2 seconds, so not be able to say anything, and it wasn't, I must say, it wasn't with every single seizure.
But it took over your life by the sounds of it, or it was your life.
At that point, I didn't really know what to do. I didn't have much. And then, so after that long period of being in hospital, I think I was allowed home. I think it was Christmas Eve, basically then I got referred to Great Ormond Street Hospital to see if they could find a kind of help diagnose what was wrong. And from there I had a couple of MRIs at the hospital, and they found a brain tumour. I think they said, my parents were like, it's an old 50p size, because apparently they used to be bigger. And so I had that, in which they were like, well, we're going to try. So again, they tried to do some different medications, and I also had, if I'm right in saying, some telemetry scans, which I was hooked up to a machine, had loads of, I don't know the words, like electron things put in my head, and I'd have week-long scans attached to the machine. I looked funny with a little hat, and I was attached to this big machine that was, I found it interesting. I mean, it wasn't the best, but it was quite funny watching this wiggles on the screen of what I'd do, and I lift my arm up and it would wiggle a bit more.
And that was all when you were at Great Ormond Street Hospital?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So I'd go there for different appointments, and eventually they were like, it was taking over my life. I was getting to the stage where if nothing was done, the pros of the surgery outweighed the risks, because there was quite a few risks with the surgery as well. And so that year we said there was a possible date quite early on, but my parents were like, because of the possible risks of the surgery, they wanted one last holiday with me that they knew. Yeah, okay. Which was lovely. We went on a family holiday then.
Where did you go?
Just to England, but it was still really nice. Yeah. Really nice. And then in the October, I had the surgery.
Have you ever spoken to your parents about all their memories or how they felt when these conversations were happening before your surgery? I mean, as a parent, the thought of your child needing such, or being, experiencing these seizures and then being told that they need such serious surgery.
Yeah, I know.
It's unimaginable.
I know it was hard on them. Quite hard. I mean, I've had a few conversations, but I also know it's tough for them to talk about as well. Yeah, I bet.
But it must have been very tough on you. You were young.
Yeah.
You might not have known any different, maybe, if this is just you were growing up like this. But
yeah.
Fearful of...
I think I was a bit...
What might come?
Because funny enough, a lot of my seizures are also triggered by emotions and mental, and they could have also been triggered by temperatures and noises and sounds, and so there was an endless list. But it was funny how emotions also triggered my seizures, and so if I was upset and things like that, so that it was hard, and mentally it was quite a tough thing to go through.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine what it was like for my parents. I know at times they really struggled, but they were so supportive.
Yeah. Presumably one of them stayed with you at the hospital when you actually went for the surgery.
The way it worked, there was a bed in the room, obviously for me, and then there was this bed sofa thing that one of my parents could have stayed on, and usually my mum came with me and stayed on it, and how she slept on that bed, I don't know, because it's when you touch it, it feels like a solid table.
Oh, right.
Yeah, but it still meant
Your bed was more comfy.
Yeah, my bed was quite nice. Hospital bed, but it was good.
Yeah.
I could go up and down, so. And then when I had the surgery, both of my parents stayed over.
Okay.
So I've got 3 younger siblings, and they went to friends and family.
So everyone pulled together.
Yeah. A lot of friends and family helped during that period.
Yeah.
So my mum and I flew over a couple of days earlier because I had to do like some pre-operation scans and tests. And then my dad flew over and I think arrived just on the day, just in time, because I think the fog typically was being a bit annoying. And although I don't really remember much, one of my key memories is I was getting prepared for the surgery. I had the typical gown, long socks on and things, and I was about to start watching the Deathly Hallows, part 1, I think.
Nice relaxing film.
Yeah, and then I was like, actually, maybe this isn't the best idea, which is quite funny when I remember that. But that is probably one of the most significant things I remember from the whole period.
Yeah.
And I know the surgery took hours, like several hours. In which I have the memory of falling asleep and don't really remember waking up. But my parents said I woke up quite early, quite well and talking. But my mum, they don't usually let in the recovery room, was allowed in the recovery room. And apparently when she saw me, she knew I was going to be okay.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got long hair now.
Yes.
Presumably, did they have to cut part of your hair off?
Yeah, so I was quite lucky.
The practicalities.
Yeah, I think if it was done a couple of years beforehand, yes, they probably would have had to shave my whole head.
Okay.
But I was very lucky in that they only had to shave like a small patch on the side of my head. And it was actually done in a way that the top of my hair could still lie over it.
Right, okay.
So there was... so it wasn't always visible.
Yeah. I mean, obviously the cosmetic side of things isn't the most important when it's, such serious surgery, but I'm guessing as a young girl those things are important when you then come home and you want to see your friends.
It was a bit difficult. I was never really into, I think because of everything that happened, I wasn't overly fussed on what I looked like. I just knew it was really important.
Yeah.
But one thing that did stick was that I think I couldn't knock my the area, and I had to be really careful of what temperature it was, and so I started loving wearing hats, and that hasn't left.
So you had to be warm.
I had
to keep your head warm rather than keeping it cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and so the hats began.
Yeah. And in terms of the recovery process from the surgery, how long did you stay in the hospital before you were allowed to come home, and what was that process like when you got home?
So I stayed in, if I'm right in saying, I stayed in Great Ormond Street Hospital for I think 5 days afterwards.
Okay.
And then I flew back home.
That seems really quick.
Yeah.
It might not have felt it.
No, when I think about it, it's a bit like, oh, I only had it for that long?
Yeah.
And then I flew back home and stayed over here, and I can't remember how long I stayed in hospital over here for after that. And then I wasn't allowed to play any wind instruments for 6 months because the blowing would cause pressure in my head.
Okay.
And then I was off school for 3 months.
Right.
After that.
And that would have been at quite a crucial time academically.
Yes.
Under the systems we've got. You must have been in GCSE era.
So I went back and repeated year 10.
Okay.
So I kind of moved down a year and repeated my year 10, which was also tough.
Yeah.
I struggled through that, but I still appreciate how supportive all my teachers were through that time.
I mean, do you mind telling us which school you went to?
So I was at St Sampson's High School.
Okay. So you went back and did year 10 again.
Yep.
So year 11 is when you do your GCSEs.
10 and 11.
Yeah. And then what did you do after that? Were you still in recovery process at this point?
So I didn't get the full sign off, absolutely fine. Well, to a degree, absolutely fine, until I was just before my 18th birthday.
Right, okay.
As I was still having seizures for a period of time after, but we don't think they were epileptic seizures because I was also on quite a lot of medication, and it was almost like a coming off medication sort of process, and also the seizures are almost like a habit for my body to do.
Right. I mean, this might be a daft question, but were the seizures linked to the tumour?
As far as we are aware, they likely were.
Okay.
Obviously, unless you do, I don't know what.
Yeah.
You don't fully know. But from what I remember, the scans afterwards show that I don't think they were.
Okay.
The new ones I was having.
Yeah.
And funny enough, a lot of those I remember more, or it was somewhat conscious. So for all of my other seizures, I wasn't conscious. I had no idea what was going on. But after that, they started getting a bit more like I knew I was having them in a weird way.
And that must be scary.
Yeah, it was strange.
Yeah. And then you said after the surgery, and a couple of years after surgery, you were still having them, but your body.
Yeah.
That was your body kind of doing what it remembered.
Yeah, it was kind of doing what it was remembered. Obviously, coming off the medication, and they did start to go away, but it was still a period of time before the doctors could fully say she's absolutely clear. I'm all good. Do what I want.
So you were back playing your musical instruments by then.
Yeah.
So that was a 6-month break.
Yeah, so I couldn't play for a period of time, and then obviously I wasn't actually feeling well enough for a period of time.
Mm-hmm.
But even before I was allowed to play, I went back to some of my wind bands and orchestras, and was helping newer students with them. So I'd sit alongside and help with reading of the music, or I'd put all the music on the stands or something, because I couldn't get away.
I mean, music is often described as being therapeutic, and I think it's actually used, isn't it, by some health professionals, because it's got that therapeutical element.
Yeah. At one point, I thought I might want to be a music therapist, but that wasn't quite the path I took. But
you are a music teacher.
I use it in my own way.
Yeah.
And I do think it's quite amazing what it can do. It can bring people together, and things like that. So I carried on kind of joining, and then once I could play again, I was able to go back into the music groups that I was in. And when I was at St Sampson's, I got the music award there. And then I was able to do my grade 8 clarinet, and I also carried it on in sixth form. So I went to the sixth form at
was the grammar school?
I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
So I did my music A-level there, and I also got 2 music awards for that, and then I got the St Stephen's Award from the music centre as well.
Right, okay. And so what's the St Stephen's Award for?
I remember being quite a shock when I got told. I was standing on the side, and as were all year 13s, or people that were going to leave music centre, and I heard my name being read out, and they went for a speech of what kind of all the bits and bobs I was doing, but they did, then afterwards they said the name, and I didn't really go, oh, that's me. I remember someone going, it's you. And I was like, huh? But I think it's just commitment and community. For example, I'd help set up all the music stands and chairs when I could, help other people around.
But it sounds like that involvement in music centre, music, helped you a lot through those years.
Yeah, I think it was my place. It was where I knew I was safe. It was somewhere I could go and just, as they say, be in the zone. It was my comfort sort of thing.
Yeah. So this event that you've organised, it's a music event.
Yes.
That's why then.
That is exactly why, yeah.
Okay, so do you want to tell us about that then? So I've got here November the 4th
yes.
for this event. So what have you got planned?
So we've got some great music from Space Pirates of Orkane and City Limits.
Yeah, so 2 very well-known local bands.
Yes.
So, yeah,
exactly. And we've got a raffle with over 50 prizes. That could be one as well.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a community event. Anyone's welcome. Under 14s have to be with an adult.
Yep.
And as far as I know, there will be a bar and some seating available, but it is like a stand-up gig.
Yeah, you want people up and dancing and having fun. I mean,
enjoying the music.
With those two bands, they'll be expecting people up and dancing,
exactly,
won't they? So presumably tickets are available to buy?
Yes.
And how much are they?
So they're £20 per ticket, and I think if you look on the St James website, they'll have them. Yeah,
that's where you can buy them through. But the money is going to Great Ormond Street Hospital and also Headway Guernsey.
Yes.
So how did they help you? I mean, again, a charity that we've all heard of.
Yeah.
But with you, how did they work?
I, after I left sixth form, I worked for a couple of years, and in that time I kind of realised that though I had the surgery a while ago, although I went through what I did, and I might be recovered or dismissed by doctors, there were still elements that I was struggling with, such as fatigue, some mental issues, and just even sometimes I could have done with someone to talk to. And coincidentally I met Orla, real coincidence, at one day, and she said that she worked with people with brain injuries, and I was like, oh, I've had a brain injury. And she was like, okay, well, send me a message and we'll see. And so at the period of time I was able to go for a Wednesday group meet. There's some lovely people there to meet up with, and really kind of helped me understand that although this was a while ago, there are still things that stick around and linger, and it was really helpful to just chat to people about what they'd been through and how hard it can be sometimes, and not to be so tough on yourself. And that was really nice. And so now, because I work term time, I'm able to go and visit the Wednesday group still, which is really, really nice.
So how long have you been going? Obviously it's not every week, but how long have you been going to your Wednesday group?
So that was in 2020, I think.
Oh wow, okay, so it's been a
couple of years.
Yeah, it's been a long-term help for you then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously with charities, Great Ormond Street Hospital, Headway Guernsey, they're places and services that people hear of, but until you need them,
you don't always know. No, and I must admit, I kind of assumed that I wasn't going through a brain injury, so I wouldn't kind of need the help. And then, as I said, when I met Orla, it made me realise, they help with more than that.
Yeah. And they have helped you.
Yeah. They definitely have.
And now, so you say that so you've not seen the doctors anymore, but you have scans every 2 years?
Yeah, so I have MRIs every 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, is there a worry? I mean, do you feel apprehensive when you come up to that time when you have to have your scan, or can you tell?
I mean, there is
that you feel healthy.
I mean, there is a little worry, but it's probably very unlikely that issues would be happening again. So that, I don't know, I've kind of got over it now.
Yeah.
I think a big thing for me was when I got said that I could start learning to drive.
Yes,
so that's what I'm doing at the moment.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned earlier that you couldn't ride a bike when you were younger because of the seizures you're having. Well, you've got your bike helmet with you today, so you're obviously able to ride a bike.
Yes.
You're playing your instruments again. You have been for a few years. Now learning to drive a car.
Yeah.
These are all milestones in most people's lives. Learning to drive a car is a big one, isn't it?
Yeah.
But for you,
they were big things.
Yeah.
I think I am very grateful for everything that I've been able to achieve after. For example, I've just finished my music teaching diploma, and I never imagined doing something like that at that one stage in my life.
Yeah.
I thought, I'm not going to be able to drive, I'm not going to be able to ride a bike, I'm not going to be able to do any more learning, I am going to be stuck in a bed for the rest of my life. That at one stage is what I thought it was going to be like. But I'm so lucky that I'm not, and I know it's not like that for everyone, so that's why I want to raise money for these charities.
And music has been a key factor for you, so it's a
Yes.
music event.
Yeah.
to help these two charities. And so really it just sounds like you want people to come along and have fun.
Enjoy the night. Have a good time.
And family and friends presumably joining you, and
Yes.
colleagues. So you said you work at the Guernsey Training Agency.
Yeah.
And also Thirst Music School.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you do in your private life, or are you so busy with music and work and things?
I think being so busy, I don't really get up to much. I do love the good board game though.
Okay.
And me and my partner are quite devoted to playing a few of those.
But even something as simple as that, at one point, that must have been a difficult thing for you to do.
Yeah, I wasn't, especially after my operation, I think one of the things that I remember them saying was, you can't think too much. You can't put too much pressure on the actual like mental part of my brain.
Yeah.
And so I remember I had a where's a character book.
Yeah.
And I could only do a page of it at a time. I wasn't allowed to do any more. But no, at times I wasn't able to join in with board games and stuff.
Yeah.
So.
But things like that you can now do.
Yeah.
And life's good.
Yeah, it's great.
If you liked what you heard, please like and subscribe. You can find us on all social media channels, and if you'd like to keep up to date on all the work the Express team does, please sign up to our daily email by visiting gsy.bailiwickexpress.com.